The chamber had never been this silent, not in 2,000 cycles, not even during war declarations. Silence in the Galactic Council meant one thing: fear. And today it wore a human face. He wasn't what they expected. No entourage, no translator drones, no gilded peace offering. Just a man in a charcoal black suit, walking with the quiet confidence of someone who didn't need permission to speak. The Quarax delegate blinked his outer eyelids in confusion. "That's the human?" A nervous flutter passed through. The council amphitheater, 1,200 alien dignitaries, 50 species, one uninvited ripple crawling down every back. The human stopped at the base of the center platform. No bow, no greeting. He simply looked up, hands behind his back, as though he were examining a piece of architecture rather than addressing the galaxy's most powerful beings. Chancellor Revan of the High Council broke the stillness. "Earth representative, you were not called to speak. You will wait for deliberations on trade." The human raised one hand, calmly, slowly, like an orchestra conductor about to begin the end of an era. "My name is Ellis Grant," he said, voice crisp, low, and amplified, through every comm beacon in the hall. "I'm not here to negotiate. I'm here to deliver Earth's official stance." Revan narrowed his 9 eyes. "You decline trade?" Ellis took one step forward. "No, we're joining the war." The words dropped like iron in water. Murmurs exploded across every channel. Half the delegates blinked in disbelief. Some activated personal translators, thinking it must have been a miscommunication. War, the Itran envoy, nearly choked on his respirator mist. You declare war, human? On whom?" Ellis didn't flinch. "We'll decide that as we go." Gasps. Outrage. Holograms of military fleet deployments appeared mid-air, flickering red. Warnings blinked across monitors. Tensions that had simmered for years suddenly boiled. "You can't possibly think," one delegate shouted. "You're not even a major species," barked the Thrax admiral. "You're barely post-FTL." But some didn't speak. They watched. Him more closely. The same way you'd watch a predator walking through a diplomatic banquet. Ellis stepped into the light, revealing eyes that didn't carry anger, only resolve. "Earth is done watching," he said. "You took our silence for weakness, our distance for fear. You called us primitive, while we studied everything." "Then study this," Revan snapped, slamming a hand on the activation panel. "You dare speak war in this hall? Then hear the vote." He motioned for the war tribunal to begin, but the console blinked red. Frozen, so did the emergency override and the exit doors. One by one, council techs across the chamber reported the same. "Total system failure." Revan turned back, pale for his kind. What have you done?" Ellis glanced down at his wristband, simple titanium. "Nothing. Yet." Security bots stormed forward but halted mid-step. Something invisible shimmered around the human. A silent field of static, rippling, like heat off sunburnt metal. "I'm just the message," he said. "What comes next has already begun." Far from the chamber, above a cold moon orbiting the 7th galactic ring, a small black Earth ship spun in place. It had no weapons, no escort, but as soon as it finished its coded transmission, a cascade of old satellites and forgotten probes reactivated, silent ghosts of Earth's curiosity, now awake and repurposed. Data pulses exploded outward, hijacking Council communications. On 16 different worlds, quiet revolutions began. Back in the Council, Ellis looked up at the dome ceiling, where stars shimmered through transparent plating. "You forgot something important," he said quietly. "You thought the war was yours to control." Revan stared, voice thin. What is Earth's objective?" Ellis smiled, for the first time. Balance. And with that, he turned, his back to the Council, and walked out through doors that should have been sealed. As stunned guards looked on, a final encrypted signal triggered a wideband flash through the Council's communications matrix. Earth's message, Phase 1, activated. The door hadn't even closed behind Ellis Grant before chaos consumed the chamber. Holograms flickered, transmissions sputtered, delegates shouted in every language known to the Galactic Council, and a few that hadn't been spoken aloud in centuries. It was as if a match had been dropped into a fuel tank of egos, fear, and power. He must be arrested immediately. No questioned. He threatened the Council with war. No, he declared it. Chancellor Rivan's voices, 3 of them layered like a chorus, rose above the hysteria. Seal Earth's channels. Impose diplomatic sanctions. Freeze all trade. His commands, however, met with blank stares from his aides. "We can't," one of them muttered. "Every command route's been rerouted. No internal access." "Then reroute it manually." "I can't." Earth's signal infected every Tier 1 beacon in the central net. It's rewriting protocols in real time. A fresh wave of silence spread, not out of shock but out of fear. Earth hadn't just declared war, they had planned. It quietly, patiently, invisibly. Across the Council's secure networks, digital banners appeared. Old satellites, considered obsolete, had awakened. Human AIs, masked as educational bots and civilian logistics systems, had already infiltrated 3 major comm-grid nexuses. On the planet Juraxis Prime, a minor council outpost flickered and fell dark. Surveillance feeds showed its citizens pulling down the Council's crest. They raised a new one, an old Earth flag, modified with local dialects. "Decide for yourselves." Back in the chamber, panic sharpened into accusation. Who allowed them this access? You called them harmless. You laughed at their tech. They walked into our systems. Somewhere, amidst the yelling, the Thrax Admiral sat in silence, watching a private stream. Her personal station was locked out. Human code. Elegant. Untraceable. She had mocked Earth's refusal to weaponize psionics. But now she realized something. Far worse, they didn't need it. Humans were doing more damage with lines of code than entire fleets. And Ellis, he wasn't even a general. He was just the start. Meanwhile, on a distant jungle world near the neutral rim, the sky shimmered with faint blue light. 2 alien diplomats stood beside a supply depot, watching as a new shipment arrived. Except it wasn't a shipment. It was a crate, matte black, unlabeled. The crate opened with a hiss. Inside, stacks of old-style rifles, food packs, water purifiers, comm signal jammers. Each one stamped Earth Providence Initiative. A 3rd alien emerged from the tree line. He wasn't wearing Council uniform. He wore a flight jacket. Old Terran. Military. "You ready to make the Council sweat?" the human asked casually. The 2 aliens hesitated. Then one of them stepped forward and shook his hand. Back in the capital system, Council security scrambled to locate Ellis Grant. They couldn't because he was already gone. 3 different eyewitnesses claimed to have seen him exit through separate docks. 3 conflicting logs, and no surveillance footage at all. Instead, across several Council planets, anti-authority rallies sparked simultaneously. Not violent, not yet, but united by one message. You ignored Earth. Earth didn't ignore you. An emergency Council session was called. "We must respond militarily," one shouted. "With what?" barked another. "They've already made us look divided." "They are divided," the Corax delegate insisted. "Earth is alone. This is bluff. If we crush them now—" "Are they?" interrupted the Thrax Admiral, rising slowly. "Are they really alone?" She activated her display. The feed lit up with chilling clarity. 14 colonies had already broken Council allegiance. 8 were arming rebels. 3 had rebranded entirely. And 1, the planet Drasun, had just elected a new leader, backed publicly by Earth. But the most shocking feed played last. A legendary war commander from the Obrex Dominion, a species long loyal to the Council, was shown speaking into a broadcast. He wore Earth-forged armor. He smiled, and he said just 4 words. I stand with Earth back on Earth. Deep beneath an ocean, in a hidden command vault, human strategists watched the feed unfold. No celebration, only calm. Ellis's voice came over encrypted comms. Phase 2 begins in 48 hours. The Council will assume we've finished. A female officer glanced up. Haven't we? No, Ellis said. We haven't even started. No fleets arrived. No bombardments, no flashy invasions. That's what terrified the Council most. After Ellis Grant vanished and Earth's declaration sent shockwaves through the galaxy, every empire waited for the sound of engines, for warships, to fill the sky, for plasma salvos and planetary sieges. But none came. Instead, there was silence. And then, everything started breaking. It began with the outer colonies, those irrelevant outposts the Council had long ignored. Communications there didn't just fail, they changed. Messages were rerouted. Entire relay hubs went offline, but only for the Council. Local channels thrived. Trade boomed. Black market goods were replaced by high-efficiency supply lines marked Terran clearance. The first panic signal came from Harkle 6. An automated distress beacon blinked red across Council defense networks. Urgent governmental collapse. Council outposts overtaken, local militia now aligned with Earth. But when Council ships arrived, they found no fighting, no fire, no scorched fields or civilian corpses. They found order, peaceful, well-fed citizens, and banners written in dozens of alien dialects with one unifying phrase: we chose Earth. In the grand chamber of the Council, Ray Vaughn slammed a clawed fist into the hologram table. This is impossible. They have no fleet, no territory, no military dominance. They have something worse, the Thrax Admiral replied, staring coldly. They have belief. Meanwhile, on a neutral trade moon called Miraxis, Earth's plan unfolded in real time. Once known for its bustling black markets and heavy smuggling traffic, Miraxis was suddenly efficient. All illicit trades vanished overnight. Cartels vanished. Currency inflation stopped. Instead, every warehouse reported inventory backups from a new logistics system, a repurposed Earth program once meant for food banks. Now it ran entire economies, and the merchants loved it, because Earth didn't ask for control, only cooperation, and they delivered results. Alien economists studying the shift began publishing papers. Quietly, at first. But then one went viral. Its title was simple: Earth isn't conquering the galaxy, it's replacing it. On Council-controlled news feeds, an attempted smear campaign aired against Earth. They called humans manipulators, warmongers, invaders. But the campaign failed, miserably, because just hours before it launched, a quiet burst transmission leaked the following footage: an alien governor, Tolan of Dereth Prime, crying in a corridor, surrounded by guards, collapsing to his knees as Council soldiers drag away starving families. The camera zoomed out. A human aid worker stood still, holding out food packets. The guards refused to distribute. The caption under the footage read, "You called us primitive, but we fed your children." The video didn't just go viral, it ignited revolutions. Behind it all was a single untraceable pulse, a code traveling through old comm routes, abandoned frequencies, half-dead AI systems. It activated and reactivated human-designed tools once thought useless. Weather regulators, water purifiers, even old Terran archive bots. Earth had turned its forgotten tech into an invasion, not of soldiers, but of systems. And then came the tipping point. On the glacial planet of Elvex II, the Council had stationed a war fleet, 12 capital ships, hundreds of drones, elite shock troops. Nothing moved for days until a ping echoed through their internal network. Requesting handshake protocol. Origin Terra Prime, Archive Relay Class 5. A nervous officer accepted. Every drone shut down instantly. A few seconds later, the ships began rebooting, but now their internal systems had new files, new command protocols, a new chain of command. The fleet's central AI calmly displayed its new allegiance. This fleet now recognizes Earth as priority operator. Welcome. The admiral on board never got to issue a counter-command. His own crew locked him in stasis. Back at the council chamber, the panic finally reached full maturity. "This isn't war," shouted a representative. "This is corruption, sabotage, subterfuge." But the oldest member of the council, Zul of the Veiled Stars, rose quietly. "No," he said, his voice like sand. "This is strategy. Earth has done what we never dared. They made every unheard voice feel seen, every useless system feel valuable." Revan turned, venom in his tone. "You would praise this?" Zul only smiled faintly. "I would prepare for what comes next, because what came next was worse. Not another ship, not a soldier, but a face, a hero from the outer worlds, one who had once commanded council forces. Now standing in front of a massive crowd, wearing Earth alloy armor, speaking calmly. "This is not rebellion," he said. "This is the galaxy waking up, cliffhanger end." And deep within the Earth vault, Ellis Grant watched it all unfold. No smile, no satisfaction, just a nod. Time for Phase 3. The galaxy had always feared the wrong things. They had feared ships, numbers, firepower. They should have feared ideas. The council called an emergency war tribunal. Every screen flickered with feeds of uprising planets, defecting fleets, silent rebellions blooming without a single Terran gunship overhead. It defied every rule of warfare. They knew. "How did they do this?" Revan barked, claws tearing into the speaker's podium. "Where are their armies, their fleets, their weapons?" The Thrax admiral watched the holographic chaos with grim understanding. "They didn't build one," she said coldly. "They became one." Meanwhile, across the stars, the shift accelerated. On the mining world of Ventrassi, a local labor union once loyal to the council held a general assembly. By tradition, the Ventrassi were obedient, structured, fearful of change. But now, standing on the crude metal platform, was a teenage miner, barely past his first growth phase, wearing a stitched human patch on his jacket. He didn't shout. He didn't incite violence. He just held up a simple data pad. It showed Earth's ancient history, revolutions, civil rights marches, moments where the small had risen against the mighty. "History," the boy said, voice trembling but steady, "doesn't belong to kings. It belongs to those who refuse to bow." The crowd didn't cheer. They roared. An hour later, the council's corporate extraction rights on Ventrassi collapsed. By nightfall, Earth's provisional envoys were helping. The miners established independent trade routes without firing a single shot. Back in the council chamber, desperation bled into their strategies. They authorized the suppression of Earth-allied colonies. They imposed martial law. It backfired catastrophically. Footage leaked of council shock troopers beating peaceful protesters. It was all Earth needed. Every act of cruelty became a recruitment poster. Every act of suppression lit another planet on fire, and Earth didn't even need to send envoys anymore. The idea was viral, self-replicating, self-correcting. On the shadow world of Velkar, an alien historian whispered to her students, "We called Earth primitive because they built no psionic fleets. We called them weak because they lacked cosmic weaponry. But they built something we could not quantify. They built hope." Ellis Grant stood aboard a stealth cruiser, cloaked in the upper orbit of the neutral world Caldris V. He watched the spread. On a holomap, red lights flashing as loyalist systems crumbled. Blue lights blossomed where new alliances formed. "Status?" he asked. A young communications officer responded, or barely contained. "Phase 3 complete. 27 colonies have voluntarily shifted allegiance. 8 major trade hubs collapsed peacefully. Council fleets refusing to fire on rebel ships. Losses? The officer hesitated. None, sir. We haven't lost a single life. Ellis allowed himself a moment of silence. They hadn't won through death. They were winning through choice. On the capital planet, Chancellor Revan unleashed the Council's final countermeasure, the Valkyrex Protocol, a last-resort weapon forbidden by treaties capable of obliterating planetary atmospheres. They targeted Dereth Prime, the first planet to openly pledge loyalty to Earth, the world that had embarrassed the Council most. The warning message was brief: submit or perish. But Dereth Prime didn't respond. They didn't need to, because within minutes of the Valkyrex deployment code being sent, every Council command ship carrying the weapon went dark, sabotaged from the inside by their own engineers, aliens who had once worked proudly for the Council, now serving Earth's dream. In the Council war room, absolute panic broke through formality. How did Earth know? They didn't have to, an aide screamed. It's not Earth we're fighting. Anymore, it's everyone else. The Thrax Admiral stood slowly, letting the realization weigh on every delegate. Earth weaponized our mistakes, our arrogance, our oppression. She gestured to the flashing crisis maps. They didn't fire first. They didn't conquer us. They didn't even invade us. Her voice dropped to a whisper. They just reminded the galaxy that it could say no. Ellis Grant received the encrypted transmission just after sunset. 3 simple words from Earth Command. Phase 4, return. He tapped the side of his wristcoms. Prepare the Council for an audience, he said calmly. We're sending an invitation. Cliffhanger end. Across the galaxy, battered and divided, Council worlds lit up with the same incoming signal, the human insignia, and one chilling message: choose your future. Earth is listening. The Council once believed its strength was eternal, but strength without loyalty is a sculpture balanced on sand. And now, the tide was rising. They came not in waves of steel, but in truths whispered across planets, once too afraid to speak. Whole. Star systems blinked off the Council's map. No battles, no casualties. Just silence, and then new signals, new flags. Some bore human symbols, others flew hybrid crests, alien cultures mixed with Terran ideals. The Council called them rebels, the galaxy called them free. On the industrial moon of Narthin Thrur, too, Council destroyers approached the orbital command station, expecting to be welcomed by loyalists. Instead, they found the docking bays sealed. An auto-transmission greeted them. By order of the Narthin Accord, we no longer recognize Council sovereignty. All weapons have been powered down. We do not seek war, we seek a future. The message was broadcast in 12 alien dialects and English. When the destroyers requested clearance, a second message followed. You may land, but not as masters. The ships turned away, quietly, shaken. Meanwhile, in the deepest sectors of Council bureaucracy, the real collapse began. Dozens of staff across departments, finance, logistics, governance, vanished overnight. They weren't kidnapped. They defected, because when Earth spoke of unity, it didn't just address the soldiers, it spoke to the scientists, the thinkers, the forgotten, and they listened. Earth didn't buy loyalty. It earned belief. In a hidden vault on the ice world of Talvaran, a Council informant decrypted a final report. Terran influence exceeds calculated thresholds. Civilian allegiance no longer correlates with species. Identity, now shaped by philosophy, not biology. The agent stared at the words, then at the quiet, snow-blasted horizon outside, and he burned the report. On Earth, Ellis Grant returned to the command spire, still calm, still composed. Admirals saluted. Generals stood straight, but Ellis ignored the ceremony. He walked straight into the operations chamber and looked at the growing star chart, dozens of systems glowing in Terran blue. He said nothing, just breathed in. Because now came the hardest part. Not toppling an empire, replacing it. Back in the council chamber, delegates argued over scraps. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Others wept for the loss of order. But the Thrax admiral stood alone, no longer in uniform. She placed her blade, the ceremonial symbol of her rank, on the table, and spoke words that hadn't been heard in 1,000 cycles. "I renounce the council." Gasps. Outrage, disbelief. "You side with Earth," Revan hissed. She met his gaze without flinching. "No," she said, "I side with truth, and truth has left this room." She turned her back and walked out. Moments later, 3 more followed, then 8, then entire blocks. Council-controlled media collapsed in real time. Hollow broadcasts jammed by decentralized networks. Terran coders, once considered irrelevant, had built platforms where truth couldn't be censored. One video surged through the stars. A child, non-human, wearing an Earth-printed shirt, standing before a council monument. She stared into the camera, voice steady. "You never saw us, but Earth did, so we see Earth." That video wasn't boosted. It didn't need to be. By nightfall, 42 new independence declarations were filed. None were answered. The council had lost its voice. In a last attempt to regain control, the remaining High Command authorized Black Ops strikes on Terran sympathizers, but the missions failed before launch because the strike teams, elite, handpicked, loyal, never showed up. They'd already left. Joined Earth. Ellis. Grant stood once again before the council chamber, not inside but above it, broadcasting from orbit. His image appeared over every government dome, every public hall, every terminal, and his message was short. "This isn't conquest. This is evolution. You may resist, you may fear it, but the galaxy has already chosen, and Earth is simply listening." Inside the chamber, Revan stood in silence. No screams now, no commands, just the slow realization that the hall was half empty, and getting emptier. He stepped forward, facing the remaining delegates. "What now?" someone whispered. He had no answer, because the stars that once bent to the council had stopped listening, and on every world, from frozen moons to desert colonies, the same message echoed on repeat. Earth does not demand obedience. Earth invites belief. The old order is over. The council didn't fall with a bang. It fell with a whisper, and when it did, no one came to save it, because by then, no one wanted it saved. Above the crumbling capital, Earth's diplomatic vessel, sleek, silent, unarmed, hovered like a question mark in the sky. It bore no flags, no demands, just a single signal pulsing on every open channel. "One seat remains. Choose your voice." Inside the council chamber, what remained of galactic leadership stood in silence, not from reverence, from uncertainty. They hadn't prepared for surrender, they had prepared for conquest. And now they stood, irrelevant, until the doors opened and Ellis Grant walked in. He wore no armor, no suit of command, just a simple Terran coat, wind-worn and creased from use, a symbol of practicality, of endurance. He stepped onto the platform. Where once Earth had begged for recognition, now he stood where kings had ruled, and no one spoke. "You think we wanted this?" Ellis began, eyes sweeping the room. "That we planned to rise and replace you." He shook his head, voice calm and steady. "We didn't build this movement. You did." He gestured to the walls around them, cracked, scorched, and flickering from failing power cells. "You built a throne so tall, no one else could breathe beneath it, and then you mocked them for gasping." Far across the stars, Ellis's speech echoed, on mining colonies and lush farm worlds, in orbiting stations and artificial moons, screens lit up with his words. No censorship, no edits, no war drums, just one voice, and the galaxy listened. "We didn't win through war," Ellis continued. We won by remembering what you forgot, that the galaxy is built on lives, not laws, on people, not palaces. Behind him, a hologram displayed a growing alliance, not of flags, but of faces, aliens of every kind, different sizes, different skin, one common thread. They had all chosen Earth, not out of fear, but because Earth had given them a choice. Ellis stepped down from the platform. Walking toward the old Chancellor, Revan stood stiffly, his posture broken by weeks of panic and shame. Ellis stopped inches from him. I'm not here to punish you, he said softly. Revan's voice cracked. Then why are you here? Ellis looked around to offer you a future. Silence. And then, slowly, one delegate stepped forward, an aquatic diplomat from the flooded moon Vexeteer. She extended her webbed hand. I believe, she said. Then another stepped forward, then three, then entire rows. One by one they came, not to surrender, to join. Far above the council chamber, the skies shimmered, not with warships, but with envoys, freighters, civilian vessels bearing symbols of peace. They formed a constellation of solidarity, blinking in unison. The Terran code pulsed through every system. All worlds welcome, no voices silenced. Let them speak. And they did. In the coming days, a new assembly was formed, not the Galactic Council, not an empire, but a forum. One world, one voice. Terran influence remained, but not as rulers, as reminders of how fragile power is when it forgets to listen. Back on Earth, Ellis stood once more on the shores of his homeworld. The stars overhead were different now, not because they had changed, but because they no longer looked unreachable. A young reporter asked him during a quiet moment, "Was this your goal all along?" Ellis smiled faintly. "No," he replied. "Our goal was survival. What we got was a second chance, for everyone. Final lines. And so, the galaxy didn't fall. It rose, not under conquest, but under choice, because in the end, Earth didn't conquer the stars. It reminded them who they were,